Before you watch the videos, I strongly suggest you take a look at the PowerPoints. There's a lot of visuals in there. Some stuff won't make sense right when you read it, but read it, then come back to the videos, and hopefully the videos will make a lot more sense thanks to that. So in this first program, I already have it written because this should be a familiar program. It's called Array Example 1, and it doesn't use any arrays. So you can see in the comments I have not using arrays. Imagine if we had more numbers, this would mean more variables. So let's take a look at the program. We have three integers, right? num1, num2, num3, and we assign these integers to be the values of 1, 2, and 3. Nice and easy, and then we print the integers using variable referencing and concatenations and stuff we've been doing all semester. So when we run this program, it just says the numbers are 1, 2, and 3. A nice and easy program. We were probably writing this come week 1 or week 2. But what if we wanted to add 100 numbers? Well, you could say, well, that's easy. Then I just have to make int num4 and assign num4 to be 4 and then add it down here. But you would be here all day. That's where arrays come in. Think of arrays as collections. They're collections or they're groups of the same data type. So in this case, we could really use an array of integers. Right? In Java, arrays have to be the same data type, so they would have to be all integers. That's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to do a save as on this. And I'm going to call this array example 2. And change the name here. And we are going to, instead of using these numbers, we are going to make an integer array which has a size of 3. Because the way arrays work in Java is you have to define the size before you actually give the value. So we have to say, this array is going to have a size of 3, and then we can fill it with 3 numbers. Remember, it's just a group of data types. So let's say int num array. This is our number array, and it's an integer. What makes it an array is this square bracket. You can find these square brackets to the right of the backslash, to the left of the backslash and to the right of the P on your keyboard. That's the square brackets. That signifies an array. So this is one way to make an array. We're going to see another way in the next video, but int num array, and then we give it the array sign, equals new int array. Put a semicolon and we'll get a big red line because we haven't specified the size of the array. Remember I said at the beginning, we have to tell it the size we want this array to be. Well, we know we have 3 numbers, so the size of the array goes straight inside of these square brackets right here. The size is 3. Okay, so we have an integer array. It's an array because of this, equals new int, size 3. This is the size. Arrays, much like strings and for loops, they begin at position 0. So it gets a little tricky, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So what we're going to do now is remove this, and we can keep the numbers here, but let's add some comments. So we are going to print num array. Let's print the num array. So should be as easy as saying num array, right? Well, let's see, we don't have any red lines. When we run this, we get the numbers are square bracket I at 15 db9742. What does that mean? That is not what I made, right? So let's make some comments here, and as I'm making the comments, I will describe what happened. So note this prints some strange output. This is because this is not the array's contents, but instead the array's location in memory. So let me expand on what that means. When you just print a num array like this, you're not printing the contents of the array. Remember, an array is a group of objects, so you can't just print everything at once. You have to reference an individual piece. Just like if I email one student, I don't want to email all students all the time, right? Just because you're a group who are in this class doesn't mean when I want to email one of you, I email all of you. Sometimes I do, but usually I just reference one to respond to. And the same is in this case. This is referencing the address in memory. So this thing right here, This is literally where the array is stored. It's not the array itself, it's where it's stored within the computer's memory. We're never going to need to use this. So this isn't how we print an array, but it's just something I wanted to show you so you don't make the same mistake. So let's do a save as and make num array example 3 to try fix this up. Okay. So let's remove these comments because now we're in a third one. We made an integer array which has a size of 3. We are now going to correctly print num array index by referencing each element individually. Note, arrays begin at position 3. So how do we do this? Well, we can't say num1 anymore because num1 doesn't exist. But what does exist is an element within the array. So what we're going to do is we reference elements within the array by saying num array, and you're saying, well, you just said that and it didn't work. That's because we have to say num array square brackets. Those square brackets are very important. Okay, we have an integer of size 3. Arrays begin at position 0. So the first element in the array is actually the 0th element. So this reads, the numbers are num array, give me the 0th element, and then we'll concatenate, and we'll just add these on before we run it. Let's go down here and say num array square brackets 1, and then concatenate, and our last one, num array at position 2. Remember, because it's of size 3, that's 0, 1, and 2. So the last index in your array is always n minus 1, the length minus 1. So let's run this and see what happens. The numbers are 0, 0, and 0. Well, that's not right too, right? Well, it is, because think about it. When I erased those original numbers we had way back in the first example, I never brought them back in. So when you have an array of size 3 like this, and you never tell the computer, hey, these are the values of what is in the array. We gave the array of size 3, but we never gave it actual values. We just said, you have 3 integers. Because we did not specify those integers, the 0th element is 1, the 0th element is 0, the first element is 0, and the second element is 0. If you don't specify the values, they default to 0 in an integer array. Let's make a note of that. Note, all of our numbers are by default set to 0 because we did not initialize them. So the last example for this video, we are going to do a for, and we're going to wrap things up in our first example of arrays by the following. We're going to give values. So I'm right here. I'm in between where I made the array and where I print the array. Let's remove this comment because it will not be relevant here. And what we are going to do is we are going to say index 0, 1, 2, elements 1, 2, 3. And I'll talk about this. We're going to initialize elements of array. So we're going to say num array at position 0 equals 1. And then we can copy this, paste it a few times, and change this up. Okay, so what does this mean? Index 0, 1, 2, elements 1, 2, 3. This is where most people get confused with arrays. Again, the index of array begins at position 0. So the 0th index is here, and the element inside of it is 1. This is the first index. The element inside it is 2. This is the third index. The element inside it is 3. So the index is the actual position of the array, and the element is what's inside of it. The index is the position, and the element is what's inside of it. Now when I run this, note I didn't change any code down here. It's referencing num array at position 0. So it's going to go up here and say, okay, num array at position 0, that's 1. Num array at position 1, that's 2. So let's take a look. And you see how that works. Now you might be saying, well, 10 minutes ago, you had the same program. It did the same thing, and you just did all that work for nothing. Well, no, arrays are very efficient. They're used all the time. Your student ID number, anything you can think of is probably stored with an array because arrays are easy to sort, access, search. They're just great. So get used to arrays. This is one way to write them. In the next video, I'm going to show you a shortcut.